Welcome to another episode of the Straight Up Chicago Investor Podcast. I'm Tom Shellcross, licensed agent with Second City Real Estate. With me, as always, is Mark Ainley, owner and founder of GC Realty. Mark, what do you want our listeners to do to that subscribe button?
Bam! We're going to smash that subscribe button, and you're going to smash that like button, and you're going to leave a 5-star review. You don't have to smash the review, but give a good review.
Mark and I are quitting podcasting, just doing radio in the morning personnel now.
Yes. We have our own 4-hour Eddie and Jobo. We're the next Eddie and Jobo. For anyone that is old enough that knows who that is.
Which is about 1/8 of our listeners, I feel. Yes. Not a lot.
So speaking of older or next generation, whatever, I have to tell you, Tom, I had, if anyone asks me what was great about this weekend, it might even be this month, is my son, who's 10, came to me and he wants to know how to invest in real estate. And he wants to, I said, the cute part of this is I'm like, oh, well, I could definitely show you how to buy real estate. He's like, no, Dad, I want to buy real estate. I want to invest in real estate. Not knowing that it's kind of two in the same, but it was awesome. So we're going to kind of, the problem I struggle with having kids is dumbing it down. It's not the right word, but putting it into phrases that kids understand. My wife, all the time, when the kids ask a question, my wife will always follow behind me and literally answer the same question, but in a much more kid-friendly way. So I'm going to work with him on getting him excited about that. He said by 15, he wants to know it all. That way he can understand why he's saving his money. So I'm pretty excited about that as a dad.
Man, you have a lot to teach him.
Well, I wish if he's down to learn it, the exciting part is we always look back in our lives and say, I wish I would have known this at this point. So if I could find a way to keep it exciting and teach him that stuff, man, you could have a huge head start.
Good stuff. We're going to have to track the progress now. That'll be a whole nother podcast. We'll just do a podcast meant for 10-year-olds.
Yeah. Jocko Willick does it. He's got the all the stuff for the kids. So we could do it too.
Good. Well, step one, let's have your son hear the housing provider tip of the week in case he's chiming in and listening here. All
right. So step one for all you real estate investors, it's that time of year where we start having these storms and power goes out and, tenants are moving out a lot more this time of year. And I think the one thing that I see every single year, we actually get a lot of business because other property managers drop the ball on this or something doesn't get coordinated or self-managing landlords give up after this point. But when a tenant moves out or a storm comes through and that power goes off, there goes your sump pump. There goes any sort of emergency alert type system for your sump pump. So if you have a tenant moving out, make sure that you are putting your ComEd moving it over. Don't wait. It's not a thing to wait on. So make sure you're doing that. If you have a storm, make sure that it's tough to invest battery backups into some investment properties, but sometimes it just might make sense, especially if you have a finished basement. So it's a small investment to prevent a much larger problem. The one other thing I'll say to that is ComEd has a landlord portal. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, but you could go on ComEd as a landlord, put all your information in. If anyone wants this, or we can put this in the show notes, I have all the instructions how to do this, but you can put it where if the power goes out, say the tenant moves out early or the tenant takes out their name early and it gets pulled out, the service will revert back to you as the landlord's name versus going off for any sort of dormant period. So it's every property should have, you should be signed up for that just in case. Obviously that doesn't help in a power outage situation, but for that tenant that moves out or that tenant doesn't pay, some of us have tenants right now that haven't paid or are going through these different issues with them. And, there's a good chance they have their power shut off. And if they get their power shut off and the basement floods, actually, that might be a good way to get them out, but that's maybe not appropriate to talk about here.
Good stuff.
All right. I'm excited. I'm excited because I have been asking today's guest to come on the show since before I think you and me recorded our first show, Tom. I think I remember we were in, I always say his name wrong, Ibni over in Bronzeville in his house on a Saturday. And I saw you. I said, you got to come on my show. And I think I followed up with an email, multiple emails, and I gave up for a while. And then I got an email a few weeks ago said, I'm ready for the podcast. And I got super excited. So I'm like, I think I stopped what I was doing and I replied right away. Because I'm like, I'm not going to lose her right now. I gotta go with the motivation. But today's guest, she's Director of Education and Community Engagement at Community Investment Corp. Originally from Chicago, has over 15 years of association management, specializing in commercial real estate education and investment planning. She's worked with the American Bar Association, Jenner and Block, the Chicago Association of Realtors, CAR, and the Chicago Apartment Association, who we also had on here. We had both those people on here. As Director of Education and Community Investment or Engagement, she has expanded upon CIC's education and community outreach efforts to enhance next level workshops and focus on best practices in operating multifamily housing. Her experience with group facilitation, combined with her extensive background in commercial real estate management, education planning, has enabled her to create dynamic learning experience and challenge her to expand and strengthen the pool of qualified apartment building owners as investors in low income communities. In addition, she's a member of several organizations that focus on real estate investing. Today, I will introduce here Jessica Sivels from Community Investment Corp. Welcome, Jessica.
Hi, thanks. Thanks for having me. Good afternoon.
It's a mouthful. You've worked for a lot of acronyms. I said the full words, but in my mind, I was thinking CAR, CAA, so CIC, like so. You know what? Give us, we've had on episode 45, Jack Crane, we had 94, Stacey Young, your coworkers at CIC. But before we go any further, just give us a rundown on what CIC is and how you fit into the organization.
Okay. So again, thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys. So a little bit about CIC, Community Investment Corporation. We are Chicago's leading investment source for funding your commercial projects. A lot of people think, CIC, because again, we offer a great education, but we are a commercial lender. So pretty much, if you're thinking about investing in Chicago, we can start your investment journey. We're a good starting place for investors. So we can fund the acquisition, construction for your projects, anything 5 units and up. We also do mixed use. We do some type of portfolio lending as well, and we can talk about that a little bit. And and we work a lot with the city of Chicago to roll out a lot of their programs as well. And then in addition to that, what I do, to being the Director of Education and Community Engagement, we have wonderful property management education webinars now, workshops, events for investors. So we're a good starting place for investing in Chicago.
So how long has CIC been doing the education piece, and what really got the organization into that part? Because I think that's probably one of the most crucial parts to having successful lending, but love to hear kind of from a historical standpoint how that came to be.
Right. So property management, actually next year will be 25 years that we've been offering the property management part of CIC. So it wasn't necessarily started, when the company started, they thought, it'll be great to have this education for investors. It actually happened after the fact. Because again, when you're doing investments, us being a lender, we see the obstacles, we see the opportunities, we see the shortcomings, because again, that's pretty much what we do. So it started about 25 years ago. I believe I'm the third person to sit in this seat at CIC to offer the education. So we've been around a while. It was actually funded first through the city of Chicago. We're still a partner of the city of Chicago as far as offering these education opportunities, because again, they were looking for a place that a semi-public place where people can come and get affordable education on the in-works of investing in Chicago. So that's pretty much where it started.
I always thought about it, for you go get a speeding ticket and you could elect to have traffic school instead of having to go on your record. I always thought that if you get a violation for being a crappy landlord, if you took classes through you guys, they could at least get the record expunged. So I always thought that'd be fun.
Actually, it works like that with a couple of groups. It's exactly like that with like CHA. We're of course a partner with CHA, but yes, if you get a violation, an owner gets removed from the system, in order for them to come back, they will have to take our certificate. So it is kind of that way, a little bit with the city with housing code violations. They give you a reduction of the fee if you take the class, but it's not, it doesn't totally go away, but yeah.
No way. That's awesome. That's great. All right. So I'm on something at least, or I'm at least thinking on the right level as people. So you've had in your career, you've had all these different positions where you've done a lot of, you've worked to better people's investments. You've done work to better experience, whether it be with CAR, or CAA, or especially now, like that takes a certain type of person. Like, how'd you get into this as a background? Like, what do you love about this? Like, it kind of gives a rundown of what really makes you feel good at night.
Okay. So it actually started back when I worked at CAR at the Chicago Association of Realtors. When I started there, it's an interesting story. I'm not going to tell the whole story, but when I started working at CAR, I was actually the coordinator for the commercial forum group, which is, I'm now a part of the committee of it. But with that, because it's being so niched, I never really, I wouldn't say I didn't like real estate, but not necessarily the home buyers, like, selling a home. I like more of the business side, which is the commercial side. Cause I'm like, okay, they're doing the big buildings, office, retail, they have a lot going on the commercial side. And so when I got offered the position there, I had the most critical chair ever. His name is Wayne Kaplan. I'll name people. Wayne Kaplan over at Sperry Van Ness. He's still there. He made me learn everything about commercial real estate. He did not get off my back. Jessica, you have to learn this. And trust me, by you learning this, it's going to make you a better industry professional, which was true, totally true. So I understand, when you work in a car, it's all aspects of commercial real estate, but I really love the apartment side. Like, it's some good stuff. And then I met Taff West, who was actually my predecessor. Taff, he was the person who did this. And when I met him, just sitting, talking to him, listening to him, how he engages with the community. When I met him, I was like, oh my God, if I was ever leave CAR, I wanted to work at CIC because I want to have that same influence and give the same education the way he delivered it. But piggyback on that, the position at the Chicagoland Apartment Association became available. I was the senior manager of education there, and I learned how the big buildings did it, right? We talk about how the small, mid-sized owners, but I'm talking about the Gray Stars, the Watertons, Bozzuto, the big management companies. How did they do it? How did they interact with their staff? Mind you, they have the same needs. They're providing housing, they're housing providers, but on a bigger level. So it was a great combination, right? Working with the big building, understand how they do their operations, but put it in a bite-sized way to teach it to the smaller managers here in Chicago. So once I stayed there for about 5 years, Taff decided to retire. Here I am.
Awesome. So you mentioned some of the bigger boys. Can you give us a quick rundown of someone who's never heard of CIC and didn't realize that we have this educational piece? Mm-hmm. Who is this? Is the person with the 2 unit? Like, can they benefit from this? The person who's got 500 units, is there something for them? Just what is the spectrum you guys cover on the educational side?
Right. Okay. So yes, we will talk about, okay, so when you're buying a 2 flat, right? That's pretty much where people start their investments. They house hack or whatever you want to call it. They want to be a landlord or owner operator. So yes, again, because the ordinance is still, I always tell people to act, it's in Chicago, it's our laws. So you need to understand that because again, Chicago's a very tenant friendly city. So it matters, even though Jessica, if I live here, it doesn't apply, you should still operate your businesses if it does, right? So interacting with tenants, the eviction process is the same. So all of those day-to-day operation functions that you would need to know if you operate from 2 to 50 to 200, it's still the same. Now for bigger companies where we come to play, again, I provide because it's a different need that they have because a lot of the bigger companies, they have their own hiring, their own education. But what I'm learning now, because a lot of different mid-sized management companies, they're coming to me for like fair housing classes, right? Because again, CIC, where we're embedded in the city and what we do as an organization, we're mission driven for affordable housing. That's a big part of what we do. And we provide free fair housing workshops. So it just made sense to, be in those places. And then they have a open space that they can talk about the issues because a lot of the bigger management companies, if they're inside their company having their education, they feel more restrained to express what they're having issues with opposed to coming to a smaller class and they can just talk it out, as far as like if they need assistance and it's more of an open space for them. So.
It's interesting. You guys do all these seminars on the different seminars on the different topics. Just talking about kind of currently what you're seeing, like where's there a gap in investor or housing provider type knowledge? Is it around the new laws in Cook County? Is it getting used to the couple housing, the changes that happened as far as notice? Like, kind of give us a rundown of what you're seeing or where you think there's a really shortfall and what people need to know.
Right. So, 2020 hit when COVID happened. That put a lot of people in a world span because, again, they didn't have systems in place, right? It was still a lot of, because these are mom and pops, so they weren't doing online bill pay. They weren't doing virtual tours. They weren't doing, how to communicate with our tenants online. So technology, when COVID hit, technology, it was just like, Jessica, show me exactly what I need to do. I need, so we had to switch gears, get everybody Zooming, talk to your bank. You would be amazed how many people were still doing cash payments for rent. We're still doing lease, pen to pad, not having actual leases. So when that happened, your accounting system has to be set up correctly. Your operations had to switch. Again, people working from home. How do we do this remotely? Everything happened. I mean, all the things that happened in the world, it happened in our space. However, we're so face to face, it's so transactional that a lot of people, they were looking for technology, help. With the city, the ordinances, it was a lot of things that we had to come to play. I know we're 2 years kind of out of it. But it was a lot of systems that people had to overcome. What I'm seeing now with small investors, and believe it or not, I'll tell you this, during COVID, because we did go online, all of my classes were well attended. I've seen a growth in attendance on the online webinars during the COVID. I mean, I don't know if they were just at home investors. They just had, time to watch and understand and learn. But it was a great time for, education. Now, as far as what's happening now, people just thought that, the eviction, once the emergency rental assistance payment, how is that going to play out? They thought that everybody was just going to foreclose on their building. We have yet to see if that's going to happen. But vacancies, like now, it's still a weird space. Because again, the screening process has changed. We went through COVID, but we also went through a transition in our screening process with the just housing ordinance of Cook County, how we screen our tenants for background checks. Now it's becoming an income issue that I see. How are people income qualifying for the units? Because again, now people are entrepreneurs and, the days of the check stubs and all this, you got creative, I call it, during crisis, people became creative. And now it's really hard to income qualify folks. So I think that's going to be a little challenge going forward unless we come up with like a best practice or something on that as well. So what CIC is doing, of course, we're still doing our traditional webinars, but we're moving into mixed use. Even though we've always had mixed use being a part of our lending model, I'm actually doing my first introduction to mixed use ownership coming up in May. So be on the lookout for that.
I want to pull on that thread for a second. What are you seeing in mixed use? Because if you would ask me in 2020 what's going to happen to these properties, I'm like, oh, they're going to plummet and there might be opportunity here. I personally haven't seen that. I still see prices are still strong there, and I feel the risk factor is a lot higher, thus making it very hard to buy something in that line. But what have you seen, or what are some of the things that you guys are showing off or explaining in the educational courses on mixed use?
Well, different types, because again, we're talking to new investors. Have you considered a mixed use property, right? Because again, it's opportunities on both ways with the residential and the retail office space. So it's creating it's identifying opportunities for new investors. Just again, it's an introduction. We're not doing a deep dive, or we're not actually underwriting a deal in a class. It's more of making you aware of the possibilities of these vacant units. CIC, we're also the TIF administrator the stiff administrator for the city of Chicago. So it is funds out here for these corridors for you to possibly get a grant if you wanted to do some enhancements to your mixed use space. So again, that question, if they call me a couple of times, I create a workshop based on the calls I get or the interest or surveys or whatever from a class. And this particular one, I thought it'd be a great time to just have a conversation and then build from there. We'll see how it goes. Again, this will be our first workshop that we're going to do the introduction to it, to ownership of it, and then see if we can build there to see, if folks, we're going to actually do it. We're doing it in conjunction partnership with Chicago Community Loan Fund, CCLF.
I love, there's a lot of opportunity for mixed use out there. I always tell people to underwrite those deals, especially in those corridor ones that maybe it's called South Side or West Side. When if you can underwrite something and the numbers make sense without having any income on the 2 or 3 or 4 commercial spaces down below, like that's where you could take the building on, do what you have to do based on the income upstairs, and then be able to work patiently to be able to come up with the right solution for downstairs, or be creative, or be able to work with the community and do things, or even donate space to, kind of, there's a lot of things you could do with that, because that's great real estate. In the end of the day, it's just, if the numbers don't make sense, or you have to include those rents, I think that's where the risk comes in, Tom.
Right. I always tell people that's the icing on the cake. A lot of people, the misconception with that is they think that the retail space is really the driver in the property, and it's really not. It's really the residential piece, and then the actual storefronts or whatever you want to put at the bottom. That's the cherry on top.
Agree.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting back to I don't know if normal, back to whatever the new normal is going to be, and people are getting out. And what is the upcoming, are you guys going to start doing class in person again? Are you guys going to stick virtual? Like, what are you guys seeing, or what are you guys doing as we're getting back to a more normal world, or back to in-person world?
Right. So we're doing a pilot, a tester. We're going to actually do a full class, because typically my classes are all day. These are 7-hour classes. So we're going to actually do the end of this month, which is April 29th. We're actually going to do an in-person class to see how it goes. We're going to keep that, still have that placement for the virtual education, because again, it's very easy and convenient to do. But what's missed is the networking piece. I tell people it's a networking business. You can't just do it through boxes, which I appreciate the flexibility of this, but you're missing the networking piece, because again, you learn from each other. My rooms are always filled with different variety of investors from all levels, right? I can get the most seasoned person and they'll be fussing throughout the whole thing, talking about they know. I've done this before, but I'm like, but you're taking the class for a reason. It's either to re-educate yourself, to see the buzz in the room, to hear that conversation, and you miss that through Zoom. We don't get that same camaraderie through Zoom. So we sent
I sent a couple of people through your course, the property manager course. I'm not sure how many hours it is. I know I took it back in the day. I think it was 2 Saturdays I took it over. But, for listeners, kind of tell us what that course, what the goals are, kind of what that criteria is that you're putting out there for people to learn and get that certificate. Listen, the certificate's awesome, because my one guy, he's not even a property manager. He's in the sales part. He loved it.
Oh, great.
He showed it all. He hung it up on his desk, and so the certificate does mean something to people. So
that's great. Well, no, we cover everything. A big portion of it is the ordinance that, I have an attorney come in. Actually, the actual criteria is led by professionals. People think I teach the whole class. No, I don't. I have good partners who are actually out there doing, my ordinance conversation. It is taught by a landlord attorney. We go over fair housing. We go over best practices, meaning marketing, tenant selection. We don't really go into maintenance too much, because that's a separate class. And we don't cover evictions in the initial certificate class. And we go over insurance. I have a person from CHA comes in that just gives an overall basic knowledge of, operating in the city. And it can be challenging. And I wish I could just give you a silver bullet way to, if you do exactly these things, you're going to get the best tenant of the world. But it's no promises. But if you have systems in place, hopefully, to be profitable, and it'll be a happy medium somewhere. So
the funny thing is, I was talking to somebody, it was in the last year, but they made a really dumb mistake on their property, and they're self-managing. And I kind of said, like, man, come on, like that's pretty bad. And he goes, I know, they taught me in the CIC class that I had to learn it the hard way. So a lot of, it's funny how in life, you can listen to this podcast all day, you can go in the classes, but sometimes you have to get hit upside the head and then reflect on that what Jessica was right.
Yeah, but it's crazy. Like these workshops, you say, I don't have time. And it's like, well, $25, $50, whatever it is. Like it's a, to avoid that $5,000 mistake.
Oh man.
Right. Like we're it's crazy. And I believe this will air beforehand. Maybe it'll probably be sold out by then, but it looks like the intro to mixed use that you were referencing is Thursday, May 12th. That actually might be the day this releases. I should know our schedule. I don't. But if not, we'll link to upcoming workshops you have. And I know from experience too, do you guys still do the on-demand replay?
Yes.
So if you miss it, you could, you missed the networking part of it, but you could at least still consume the content if you can't make the physical date.
Right. Not for the mixed use, because I don't have technology set. That won't be filmed. That's actually truly in person. So we might do a webinar spinoff afterwards for those who missed it. They'll be able to take it at a later date, but I'm not going to record it, the live session.
Let me just break down some math real fast, along the lines of what you're saying, Tom. For all you guys listening here, we always say we don't have time, but that's kind of BS. It's always we don't have the right priorities in place. And you go and you take, even if it's an 8-hour course, let's just say that 8-hour course with CIC, the amount of things that you're going to learn in that time period, or maybe some resources you can now use I think I remember when I got out of the class, I used a couple of those people that actually taught classes for a few years after that as my kind of network. But the amount of time that your 8-hour day, 8 hours, whatever it might be, amount of time that you're spending versus the amount you're learning versus the amount your risk you're kind of removing from yourself. Now, a lot of things people that you learn in that class, you don't even realize you're doing wrong, or realizing how much you're putting yourself, your tenants, your partners at risk because you don't know what you don't know. And there's just so much of that. And there's so much, there's tens of thousands of dollars in value in a certificate like you guys do for that property management class. Or, when you talk about these, the fair housing classes, or you talk about going over the RTLO or the how to screen the properly. Not many people know about the darn just amendment thing right now. It's like, man, you don't realize how much just a headache of getting dragged into one of those fair housing cases is even, those are always guilty to proven innocent. So if you can do anything to avoid that, like it is worth like all the time you can put up front to make sure you avoid just one of those scenarios.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'll share a quick horror story here. Like, so we just listed a property for an older couple, and, in Avondale. Great, multiple offers. The thing went smooth, but I found out through the process they had a spat with their tenant, because I was like, hey, there's a little animosity there. Once we're under contract, I was like, what was that all about? And they had a disagreement, and she went and found out, she wasn't getting interest on her security deposit. These people had been, landlords since the 70s, never realized it. And one day they got a letter from her lawyer asking for, $38,000, whatever it was. Right. And they ended up settling out of court for much less amount. But it's like doing nothing wrong, taking care of the property. They owe this person, $10 of interest, but it's a huge fee. Right. And it's those things that can be avoided. So, yeah, again, just trying to put a tangible point on this topic here.
One more, Jessica, I'm going to go on. One more thing, like the opportunity cost. We're all on here because we're trying to create as much opportunity or take advantage of as much opportunity as we can in the shortest amount of time. When you get pulled into all these dumb court cases, answering legal letters, we had to put together something. There's actually something we didn't do wrong, but we had to put together. So even when you don't do anything wrong, you still get dragged into these things. But we had to put together like documents upon request for something for a security deposit return that wasn't, they were saying wasn't justified, but it probably took 4 or 5 hours of our time in that sense. So anything you can avoid of having to be in those situations is huge. You're losing opportunity. Those 4 or 5 hours is other opportunity that you could be spending doing other things or enjoying life with your family.
Right. And just keep in mind, I don't know, it's not a defense. When you go to court, you can't say, I don't know. I didn't know.
Ignorance is bliss till you get in trouble.
Yeah.
That's a good one. So what are some things on the horizon, right? CIC has been around for a long time. You guys have obviously continued to adapt it as things change. As you look into, the rest of 2022, What are you guys looking to do? Is it more of the same? Is there anything new coming on the horizon on the educational side?
I wouldn't say new. It's just, I mean, of course, things happen. Things we don't know what's going to go on with the ordinance. We may or may not get a new mayor coming up. So we're just going to stay consistent because, again, the education piece, that's not going to go away. And we want you to be educated investors. Again, in real estate, they always say it's about location, location, location. In investing, it's about education, because again, that's going to cost you. So we'll be consistent in what we offer as far as, education, but trends happen, of course. But, bed bugs, they're still here. Maintenance, they're still here, screening tenants. So we're going to be consistent with our education and keeping it affordable. A lot of people, they think I underprice. Well, just because your classes, the information you give, you guys can charge so much more. It's not about that. In the big CIC plate, I'm not a big revenue share of, a revenue driven program. It's more, public facing. We want to get the information out there. My goal is for you guys not to get sued. That's it. At the end of the day, and I understand, God bless the folks who are, you can be an investor overnight. If you pay $2,000 to take this class, I don't do that. Like I'm not giving you any fluff. We don't really, I'm not selling up CIC because again, a lot of the people who attend my class are not even in CIC lending space. I mean, these are their first investment properties. They're buying their first 3 flats or their first 4 flats. So I just want you to make the best educated decision on your investment at the end of the day. So we'll be consistent.
What are you seeing as for some of your larger housing providers as far as, right now, it's really tough to hire people. It's tough to get people. For us, it's tough to get people into the top of the bucket to even get them to pass our kind of low-lying quizzes and information we need from them to even get them to the interview process. Like, what are you seeing out there? And you see any change of that or anything coming back? Or
because I always, the pool of employees, when I think about if you're hiring for leasing and property managers, you have to tap into that hospitality space. For some reason, I don't know if they're doing job fairs in that space, but if I was an owner of a property management company, I'm looking for the best, again, because it is customer service driven. And those folks have it. If you worked at the Hyatt, being that regional manager, you've been interacting with good, bad, and ugly for years. It's easy. That's transferred information that it's easily transferred over if from property management to hospitality, because again, to me, it works hand in hand. Same thing with maintenance, housekeeping. I mean, it's very transferable as far as they coincide. Now, like I said, I came from association management, right? I started off at the American Bar Association. How the heck did you don't fall? I mean, you don't come out of college saying, "Hey, I want to be a property manager." It's an untapped industry. That's when I put on my CAA. I'm a big advocate for the Chicagoland Apartment Association because again, these are the folks who have the careers behind it. Right. It is a good industry. People think, well, it doesn't pay a lot. It does. These are solid positions that people, I mean, it's designations behind them. It's you can go anywhere in the world. I'm like, it's a lot of opportunity with property management. Is it the most glamorous? Of course not. With Jessica, I I don't like people. Okay, well, if you don't like people, maybe this isn't the job for you. But
there's very few jobs for you.
Right. Like, you got to interact with them at some point. But again, if you have good rentals, you'll get good renters, period.
Yeah, no, that's true. Episode CAA, we had them on, Tom Benedetto, episode 116. So anyone wants to check that out and hear more about them. But you're right. The property management space is very interesting right now because I think what's happened in the last 10 years is you have all these. So you're referencing some of these things. There's so much opportunity as far as technology, leveraging different resources to whether you're a self-manager or a property manager, just to have a better customer experience. And the other part of that is renters, they're expecting that. you're going to struggle having a renter that might have rented with one of the bigger property managers or in a bigger building or a more sophisticated property manager, and they come into you and you want them to drop the checks off in your mailbox in cash on every Saturday or the first Saturday of every month. Like that's not going to, you're going to have to rise up to what everyone else is doing in order to do it. So, but the property management space is very interesting. And yes, it's very thankless. No one ever calls you up and says, listen, you're doing a good job. They call you up and complain about everything else.
Right.
Going back to the technology piece, Mark, one other thing too is just internally, right? Easier to get people paid, easier for them to understand the work order and just go get it, right? And when you create less friction internally, that person who needs to go, that maintenance guy who then needs to go do that job, like you were making it as easy as possible. You need to be here at this time, as opposed to we're texting back and forth. There might be a language barrier. Like when you can set up everything systematically, like you just operate at a much smoother level.
Yeah, housing providers have to. I think any business has to do this because I know we all get frustrated. You might think of experience when I say this, but you have to be easy to deal with. You have to make it easy to work with you, and property management is no different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, Jessica, I want to spin off a little bit from the educational piece. I know that's your bread and butter at CIC, but just to give CIC a little bit of a, our investors who are sitting here and talking about, hey, rates are going up, lending. CIC has been lending in Chicago forever. I can't remember when Jack was on and Stacy, but it's thousands of loans here, all locally. Yeah, I think it's in the billions of dollars, if I'm not mistaken. Thousands and thousands of units for rehab. Can you just, if I'm an investor, we don't need to get into the details, but what are some just advantages of the lending side of CIC?
Right. So one of the advantages, because we are local, we know the neighborhoods. Right. We've been in business since 1974. So again, we're in the neighborhood. We're in the trenches. We're in, again, all of the neighborhoods. People just think because, again, we're well known on the south and west sides, on the underserved areas, but we've hit all 77. I mean, we've been around in Chicago forever. And a good thing about that, the advantage is that, we're a small lender. So exactly, our loan officers, they take you through the entire process. It's not a, big corporation. We do all of the servicing here. We're able to react faster because, again, we know what's going on pretty much. The good thing, like I said, when you're investing in different neighborhoods, Chicago's a neighborhood city. It is. So we know the neighborhoods. We've been in that space where a traditional bank wouldn't go unless it's either, a turnkey, a purchase, or maybe, we would go when it's vacant, when it's, with nuts and bolts. We're doing the whole renovation, we're doing everything. We can operate in that space and be confident in it. Yeah, that's the CIC difference. When you think about it, we know the neighborhoods. We're not in the flipping, the quick investments. We're more a stay investor. I know it's a lot of money coming from all over the United States to invest in Chicago, but when you think about local, if you want, a local banker partner for you, CIC, and again, we're a good start. Our interest rates are pretty. On the same range. I wouldn't say we're conventional or we're hard money. We're like somewhere in the middle. I'm not a loan officer, so I really can't answer the underwriting questions of what will qualify. Well, I do know qualifications of an investor, but that's the CIC difference. We know the neighborhoods. We know pretty much the dynamics of the players, and as far as we just operate in that space. So.
I love it because anyone you ask at CIC always can answer that question the same way. Like you guys got that we know the neighborhood's down like as a group. So that's so cool to hear like how in sync you guys are. And it, you guys were the only shop in town between 2009 and 2012 that we were really lending. And what we're experiencing right now, where you could get money from anybody and everyone all day long, it's not going to be forever. We'll go through other cycles and people have to, and it took me a couple of years to find you guys, and actually I followed you guys in housing court, but that's a different story. It is, you guys are a huge part of us building our portfolio, and you guys have a great service. And Just one other comment there is on the rehab side of things, when you're getting construction loans and the knowledge that your inspectors and all that bring to the process of, whoa, you can't do that. That's not going to work for handling a building the size or whatever it might be. You guys you add so much value to the process as well too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm like a commercial.
And again, when it comes to our lending, because again, we do everything in-house. We have our own construction team that comes out. On the flip side, the education part to that too, it is a lot of education, because again, some of these investors, we don't necessarily, they can be newer, because we're not that first investment stage. That first investment stage, you're going to do that 2 to 4 units. We can't lend to that, but we can help you grow from that. Right. So it'll be that time, like you're at that 4 unit, you're ready to trans over to 6. Now you're in different type of financing. It's not a traditional residential purchase. You're in commercial. So now it's kind of identified and underwritten a little different. So we'll walk you through that. The construction piece, that's that's critical to your projects, because again, I wish people had, I call them retail buildings, right? You want a retail already done, turnkey, perfect building for the low price of under $300,000. That's not going to happen. Because again, you're paying for other people's blood, sweat, and tears and investments and all that good stuff. You're paying for all of that. So at this particular point, your first or second purchase, it'll probably be in that rehab space. But CIC will walk you through it. We don't have a vendor list. A lot of people think we have this misconception. We have this great vendor list that we're going to give you GCs and we're going to do. No, we'll walk you through the process of, how do you write a scope of work? What does a draw system work, as far as how do they get paid? And, and then identifying project, this is a good deal. Sometimes, and I'm like, we're not always the yes. Like, people think that, well, CIC will do it. It's an abandoned building. It'll be great. If the investment numbers don't turn out and it's a bad investment for you, it's going to be a bad investment for us. So again, we identify that and we walk you through it. Well, this won't pencil out. We probably, you could probably, it's a long story, but again, it's always the best interest of our clients at the end of the day. I want you guys to be profitable investors. I don't want, at the end of the day, eviction court is not the place you want to be as a property manager. Again, I would love to talk to the folks who said, Jessica, I've never evicted a tenant. And I've had tenants come and go, but I've never had to go to eviction court. And, that to me, that's a great song to sing.
That's awesome. I love it, Jessica. Jessica, anything else we want to share or anything else we should talk about before we go to wrap up? Social media, I tell people, get active on there. Don't, it's a crazy place. I know it's a gift and a curse, but, it's a lot of information and a lot of misinformation out there. But, we're there to help, podcasts like this to listen, to be knowledgeable, I'm all for it. I tell people to, I'm not a TikToker, but TikTok is the quick sound bites of more education. So, whatever space you're in, if it's Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, it's a lot of good information out there. Before you spend that $2,000 on those webinars, come learn with us. I don't know. The guy was standing next to a Lamborghini when he sold me a $2,000 webinar. So it's like, I feel obligated because I want that Lamborghini, right?
Oh, no, we'll teach you the same thing for $50, but no.
We should pose in front of like a bus stop. Just like the same ones we see all the time, like on those like paid ads, but like we're in front of just, this is the Belmont line here.
Okay.
I love it. All right. Awesome. So we'll go to wrap up, Jessica. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. So what is I'll rephrase this for you as a real estate educator here in Chicago. What's your competitive advantage? How have you been able to do this and get such a great message out?
Right. We're consistent. We're in the spaces that if you're thinking about investing, we're very knowledgeable about those spaces throughout the city of Chicago. And I'm here for you. I can't be the city's mentor, but I can kind of point you in the right direction as far as, where you want to be in your in the beginning phases of your investment journey. So come see us, CICchicago.com.
Jessica, you've already shelled out a lot of advice, but what is the one piece of advice you would tell someone that has yet to buy their first property here in Chicago?
Before you buy it, think about it. Yeah, I mean, just, just have a really, I mean, I understand people fall in love with these passion projects. It needs to be profitable, folks. This is a business. I get it. I mean, it's the passion plus profit, right? How do we combine those? How do we marry those things, that you want to do good things in neighborhoods, but you also want to make sure that they're profitable, people. Keep that in mind.
I love it. A guy comes to me the other day. He's got this beautiful looking gravestone, but the place is a nightmare. Like, it's just like, I'll end the call. I beg the guy not to buy the property, but he's like, but it's a gravestone. I love gravestones. I'm like, yes, but everything behind that gray facade is falling apart. Like, you're going to die here. You can't buy this place.
That was also me you were talking to. I love gravestones.
I love gravestones. Awesome. All right. When you're not teaching the city how to be a better investor, what do you do for fun?
I love the Chicago Bears. Go Bears, football fan. I love outside summertime Chicago. So I'm always trying to be at, lakefront as much as I can. And then, just being out and about. So.
Oh, you are getting ready right now. It sounds like you're in the mode for spring and summer. Like, this is your time.
Yeah.
Awesome. What is a good book, podcast, or self-development activity that you would recommend to our listeners?
My library, my best book I have is called The One Thing. That's a great book that would keep you on track, again, because when life pulls you so many different ways, you need to focus on one thing at a time.
Awesome. I love it. What a great book. It's timeless too. Besides yourself, name one person in your local network that you highly recommend to other investors as a quality resource.
Let's see. A quality resource would be, I don't know. You guys, I guess. You guys have a podcast, you're local, you Chicago. I listen to national folks, that's great. But when you think about Chicago, again, you guys have an awesome podcast that I would recommend. Social media, get into networks, groups. Again, they help you. It's a good way that you can ask a dumb question in an open space and get a smart answer. So the groups are good. So, yeah.
Or you can listen to someone else ask a dumb question and gain from them putting themselves out there. So that's what I like.
Yeah, a lot of times there's a lot of lingers thinking that same question. So it's not a dumb question.
Yeah.
All right. So Jessica, thank you so much. You have provided a ton of value to our listeners. We will link to your site on the CIC site. But is there any other way that they can learn more about you? Is there any way our listeners can provide value to you?
Social media networks. I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn, Jessica Sivels. You can follow me there. I'm always on our website too, CICchicago.com. But yeah. And so my website's, my Facebook page, they're friend and educational. So I do a lot of social events. You can follow on that, on all aspects of real estate. Women's Council, I'm a member of. I'm also a new member of Cruise Chicago. So I'm super excited about that in a commercial space. So yeah. They can follow me there, either one. Jessica Sivels at LinkedIn or Facebook.
Awesome. We'll link to all of that.
All right. Mark, we got our question. Do you have a potential winner?
I do. Jake Ratham out of Glen Ellen. He's got a two flat in Glen Ellen. He lives in Glen Ellen too, but he bought a Straight Up Chicago t-shirt. So now he was drawn out of the hat to win a prize if I get this question right.
We should start pulling the hat live on a podcast where no one can see it. All right. So, and we'll also let Jessica get a shot at this too, in case you don't get it, but it'll be multiple choice. So the first animal purchased for the Lincoln Park Zoo was a bear cub in 1874, which I did not know. It was bought for this amount of money. And is it A, $10, B, $155, C, $775, or D, $1,800? So 10, 155, 775, or 1,800.
Man, I thought you were going to ask what the first animal was. And I was going to get that right. But you
knew it was a bear cub?
Yeah. Then you went and asked how much they paid for it. Man.
Well, you knew bear cup. I got to make this trickier.
Yeah, I know. So
you guys got a 50-50 shot between the two of you. Figure this out. Eliminate the two you think it's not.
So the first one seems too little. The top one seems too much. So
I would say C, 775. I don't know.
I would have said B, that the 100 it was 115.
Well, you owe Jake a Home Depot gift card because it was $10 for a bear cup.
Really? What a good deal.
Yeah, what a steal, man. Bear cups are going way more than that today.
You could have totally flipped it. Oh man, that's awesome. That was a fun fact for sure. So Jessica, thank you for coming on. It was exciting to have you on here. We look forward to networking this summer in different groups. I know we'll see each other at Symposium and different places. So I'm excited about that. Tom, thank you as always. Listeners, we're redoing our website. We got a whole bunch of new resources on there. Check it out. And don't forget to smash and review and like and do everything so your network can see us and they can take part of the valuable information like Jessica shared with us today. So Jessica, thank you again. Tom, thank you. Everyone else, we'll see you next week.
Thanks all.
Bye.